right.
There's people. I thought for a second it looked like there were 6 people in there, but maybe that was the waiting room.
I can't see any of that.
Up at the top, if you click on participants, well, it depends where your menu is.
Yeah, no, I see it.
And Mark has arrived and Victoria's here.
Mark
So-
is my newest agent.
Okay,
Excellent. And
I see it
Benjamin
now.
Wilson has arrived. When you look at the attendee list and
I see that.
participants, you see who's
Excellent.
coming in.
Yep. That's great.
So welcome to our early arrivers. Feel free to drop into the chat where you're located so we can get a sense of how wide across the US of A we might be tonight.
Yeah, tell us where you are and tell us what your weather's like there. Are you having a good summer or a bad summer?
Because wherever they're having a good summer, I want to go there. It's hot.
We have that here.
Not from what you just said.
Oh, we're just used to that, but we have lots of lakes and rivers. I'll be at the lake this weekend.
Oh, that sounds lovely.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I was at the river last weekend.
Nice.
Boy, this is nice having Vic muted. That's a first.
All right, we are not endorsing that comment, Victoria.
No way. We are not. We do not agree with Mr. Crowley.
I just
At
try to
all.
see if somebody wants to post in the chat room.
There already is a question in the, Vic said chat is disabled.
Thank
Oh.
you, Victoria. Let me find out why.
Yeah, thanks, Vic. There's Margaret and Nicolina.
It may be because of this webinar that the setting is only putting it into the Q&A,
Okay.
and it doesn't have webinar chat enabled.
Okay.
So I'll see what I can do to kind of work around that. But in the meantime, if you want to put where you're coming from in Q&A, that would be fine as well. Let's see.
I think we'll give it one more minute. We'll go to
Okay.
402 or 403.
Okay.
All right, Vic, can you see if the chat is working now? I've been puttering around in the settings. Technology breakthrough.
Thank you. Excellent.
All right, good. So to some degree, we can use Q&A to make sure that your questions get answered, but also feel free to provide any comments. Or if it's easier for you to work with chat, feel free to use chat.
I don't think they can see each other's chat comments, though. I think they only go to the host and panelists. So if it's something that you want everybody to see, I think the Q&A would make more sense.
Okay. All right, let me see. Yeah, I've got everyone selected, Nicole, but I'm not sure if it's working. You can let me know.
It's now to everyone.
Okay.
It's all good. Thanks, everybody.
Good deal, yeah. Team effort.
All right,
Okay, I
fantastic.
think
All right,
I'm gonna start this.
Go
Act
for it.
like we haven't done it before. Welcome to our home buyer chat, you guys, and our home buyer seminar. This is, I'm gonna go through, there's always gonna be a little technical problem since we don't do this all the time. There we go. I'm Mike Crowley. I'm from Spokane, Washington, far western side of the United States. I'd like to know where other people are here. I noticed Victoria from Silver Spring, didn't know if other people posted. I've been a broker for over 30 years. I think I've been saying that for a few years, so I might be approaching 35 years, but I haven't looked to count yet. I've done dozens of, probably close to 100 home buyer seminars. Most of them are in person. This is only the second one I've done by webinar, so we'll see how that goes. And I'll let Andy introduce herself as well.
Well, thank y'all all for joining us. We appreciate you giving us your time this evening. I'm Andy DeFelice. I'm the owner broker of Exclusive Buyers Realty in Savannah, Georgia. This is my first home buyer seminar, so bear with and welcome.
Yeah, and so Andy and I live on opposite sides of the country, but fortunately we get a chance to run into each other once a year, maybe twice a year if we're lucky. So we're not strangers, we just live a long ways from each other. Just briefly, if you haven't figured it out, we represent a national organization. It's a nonprofit with brokers around the country that only work with buyers. Some of us have done that for 20 or 30 years. Some of us have only done it for 10 years, but there's a lot of experience within our within our organization. It's based out of Phoenix, Arizona. And we put the seminar on not for any specific reason other than just to create an opportunity for people to learn not just a little bit about us, but to help them in their journey of purchasing a home, which might be getting a little bit complicated with some things if you've been watching in the news. If you got any questions and answers about that, we could do that at the end. It's not really part of the home buying process yet, so we really haven't integrated it into here because it hasn't been implemented yet. So anything about NAEBA you want to add, Andy? One of our past presidents?
It was founded in 1995 by a group of people who recognized the need for buyers to have their own representation in the real estate transaction. Buyer agency back then was not recognized in the real estate industry. It was really kind of, what do you mean you're representing the buyer? So we as an organization realized that buyers needed our help. The seller has always had their own representation. Buyers need theirs as well. So that's how NAEBA came to be. And the fact that we have lasted for going on, 30 years now, is a testament to the dedication of the membership of the association, I think.
Yeah, and the support we get from both our clients and our staff.
Absolutely. Excuse me.
One of the first things people need to do is they're always asking about buying a home. So if you want to walk them through the pre-approval process here, Andy, kind of tell them what to expect.
Sure. So this market that we're in right now is unprecedented. Well, I've never seen anything like it, and I've been doing this for 32 years now. If you don't come into this knowing what you can do and having proof that you can do it in the way of a pre-approval letter from a local reputable lender, then the seller is not going to take your offer seriously. 9 times out of 10 in the market that we're having, at least in Savannah, you're going to be competing with other buyers. If they're prepared and they have their pre-approval letter and they have all their ducks in a row and you don't, your offer is not going to be as seriously considered as theirs are. So it's very important that you deal with a good, reputable lender, answer all their questions honestly, give them all the information that they ask for. It just puts you on a better foot to be prepared when you find that dream house so that you can make a good, strong offer the seller will really consider.
Yeah, and we are fortunately, we've cooled down enough here that we're not quite at the national average. I think I saw yesterday is still 2.4 offers per house that's being sold on the market right now. So that's not happening here, fortunately. We're able to see houses come on the market on a weekend, and we can almost wait a weekend before we go write the offer on it. So those days in our local market, but real estate is local. It's going to be different throughout, and that's kind of why Andy and I get to share our experiences in our local areas, but there's different brokers in different areas that can help you. Trying to think what else is here. Need pre-approval with who? I definitely agree with local. If somebody wants to put a question in the chat line, they might ask, well, what about Rocket Mortgage or something? I've successfully closed mortgages with people like Rocket Mortgage. The problem is when problems come up, they're really hard to solve, and real estate transactions don't always go smoothly. Sometimes I have a really good seller, a really good buyer, and things just go well, and we can get away with Rocket Mortgage. I just always warn them that if problems come up, I can't solve them. If there's delays, I can't get somebody on the phone that's going to help me with a delay. So being local is ideal. I try not to tell my people who to use. Sometimes I'll tell them who I don't want them to use though. So
Well, there's a lot to be said for being able to walk into somebody's office, because we
yes,
still are able to do that. And if it's a lender that we know and a lender that your realtor has worked with in the past, there's a relationship that's there. And a lot of this whole process is about building good, strong relationships. So using someone that's their office is right down the street, you can walk in and sit with them and have a conversation is paramount to getting a successful transaction approved.
exactly. So get approved.
First
Things won't
step.
always work. What do lenders look for? I'll start with that. They want you to have some money. That's a good start. People buying today, down payments, we talk about multiple offers. Unfortunately, sellers look at down payments. So if I don't think they always should, I think that might be the second or third or fourth thing maybe they should like. I think they should look at the strength of the offer. And the down payment doesn't always reflect the strength of the buyer. As a matter of fact, it's not unusual for me to know somebody that's got a significant down payment and they don't have very good credit. So the capacity to pay back the loan, that's your job. It's just the key is you have to have a job or Social Security or a documented source of income. If you have a trust, they can document that. But they like you to have a source of income. There's sometimes people with 50% down on a house, but absent an income, banks aren't really excited to loan the money because they still have to take the house back if you don't pay the mortgage. Go ahead. You want to talk about the collateral?
Me?
Yep.
I can't.
Appraisal and everything.
So the collateral comes into play when you have an appraisal done of the property, which is something the bank orders. We don't have any control over who does the appraisal unless it's an all cash deal, which this doesn't really apply right now. So the bank will order the appraisal. It's a third party appraisal organization typically that goes out and values the property. The bank is not going to loan you more than an appraiser says the house is worth, because the bank wants to make sure that if you default, they've got that value that they can get back out of that asset. Another thing I was going to say with regard to getting the pre-approval process completed before you really start looking at a house, there's a lot of information that you can get from your lender. What can you expect your closing costs to be when you give them the dollar amount you're looking to spend? Those are factors that you need to worry about as you start thinking about making an offer on a house. And that's information that you're going to get from your lender more than you're going to get it from your realtor. We're not lenders. We don't know all those little innuendos with regard to those expenses. So segueing back to why you need to get a pre-approval, you get a lot of questions answered and you gather a lot of information that helps you be better prepared to make the offer.
Well, quick question here. What about people with low credit scores? Can they buy a home with a low credit score?
You know, if I had an in-person class, I'd ask the classroom, what do you think credit score you need to buy a home? And the number is always higher than what is actually true. So the good news is I'd like to see you have a credit score of 675 up to 700. But you can go, I think, all the way down to 625 pretty safely now. But it affects the interest rate you get, and it affects your mortgage insurance. So I think ideally try to get it as high and close to 700 as you can, but your banks will help you with that. Your realtor can send you in the right direction of people to help you with that. Sometimes there are 3 or 4 things you can do over the course of the next 1, 2, or 3 months that can add 25, 50 points to your credit score. Something else, Andy?
Yeah, I was just going to say, try not to ever pay anybody to help boost your credit score. The lenders are trained to help you get that done. And there are little things. I mean, I've had clients in the last year that didn't have a credit score because they didn't owe anybody any money. So what a wonderful place to be. But when you don't have a credit score, the bank doesn't realize that you're not at risk. And if you don't have a credit score because you don't have any debt, They treat you as if you have a bad credit score. So open a credit card, use it for a couple of months, pay it on time. That will help you establish a credit score that the banks will look at. More importantly, don't ever pay somebody to help you improve your credit score. There are
You should not
lenders
have
out
to do
there that will work with you on that. It's not worth paying somebody to do it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Even your cell phone and your utility bill can help you build up a credit score.
Yep.
So, and I'll comment on one more thing, as Andy talks about a local lender. If I had somebody the other night was interested in a property on a Saturday afternoon, they said, what would our payment be on this property? And I said, I have zero idea. But I said, reach out to Lynn. And 20 minutes later, their lender, the one that they were referred to by another realtor in town, but just somebody that was referred to them, and they had everything they needed. But I wasn't able to determine what their mortgage insurance was going to be with such a small down payment. I don't know what their homeowner's insurance is likely to be. It also depends on the day of the month you close. So it's as far as cash needed to close the transaction. So and the cash you need to close the transaction is made up of two things. It's your closing costs and it's your down payment. If you do it, you're going to have an earnest money deposit. Could be $3,000, $5,000, $10,000. When you write that check or wire that check, as most people do now, that's part of that dollar figure that your lender was telling you that you need to have to close on a home. Probably the minimal down today and minimal closing costs for $350,000 homes is probably somewhere between $12,000 and $15,000 right now. So when you write that check for $5,000 or whatever, that's $5,000 towards that $12,000 or $15,000 that your lender told you that you would need.
You know, and Mike just made a really good point. When you start interviewing realtors to work with you, ask them what kind of connections they have. Mike was able to call a lender on a Saturday afternoon and get that information for his client because he'd formed that relationship with that lender. Find out if your realtor has those types of relationships, because you're going to be looking at houses all the time, and they may need to be able to get somebody on the phone at 7 o'clock on a Friday night. If they've worked in this industry long enough and they've formed those relationships with local vendors like lenders, home inspectors, insurance agents, they can pick the phone up and call them. That's an important tool to have in your toolbox when you get ready to buy a house.
We have a question that came up when we were talking about collateral and the value of the property. And that was, who pays for that appraisal?
That's part of your cash to close. That's part of your closing cost. Typically, the lenders will require that you pay for the appraisal and the credit report up front, because those fees have to be paid in order for those two things to be done. But it should be in the number they give you as far as your closing costs are concerned. But it is a buyer expense.
And I think it's running close to $800-900 now.
Down here, they're $5 to $6, but they're pricey.
Yep.
So in addition to your down payment, you need to be bringing enough money to pay for these kinds of expenses as well.
There's
It's usually going to be 3 to 4%.
Yeah, the closing costs cover everything from lender fees to attorney's fees to title research. Again, that's why it's important when you speak to your lender that you get a good estimate of fees associated with the closing cost. There's also the establishment of your escrow account. If you are escrowing for your hazard insurance and your property taxes, that's more money that's part of that closing cost. In Savannah, our closing cost average between 3 and 4% of the purchase price on average.
Yep. So different types of loans. These would probably be the 3 most common loans you guys would use. Conventional loans, everybody thinks, well, that's another question sometimes I like to ask a group of people is, how much do you think you need to buy a home? How much of a down payment? A lot of people still say 20%. Here they are, they're renting a home and they've been waiting to save 30%. And when I tell them there are conventional loans out there for as little as 3% down, and FHA loans with 3.5% down, and most people are familiar that the VA loans do offer 0 down loans, but it's just you and your lender are going to sit down and they're going to say, how much money do you have? What's the best way to keep our mortgage insurance costs down as much as we possibly can? Don't hesitate to bring as much money as you can to the table, because the more money you bring to the table, sometimes it's favorable towards your interest rate, but it's often very favorable towards the mortgage insurance if you're less than 20% down. In a dream world, everybody would have 20% down to buy a house and buy it on 15-year loans. That's just not the ideal world, but that would be the ideal world. Sometimes people just need to get into a home any way they can, just so they have that satisfaction for the rest of their life of home ownership. So I like them to do it as soon as possible, as difficult as it might be sometimes. So.
Mike, explain what mortgage insurance is, please.
Yeah, so what the banks have learned over the years, and I don't want to make this too complicated, but when they foreclose on a property, there's a gap between what they might lose or what they would otherwise, when they sell that foreclosed property, between what they're owed and what they sell it for. So they have an insurance policy that covers that gap. So the less money you put down from 20% and under, they use that mortgage insurance to cover that gap in the event of default for the bank. You're protecting the bank in the event you default on the loan. It's expensive. There are ways to get rid of it with a conventional loan over time. You can refinance with an FHA loan over time. Ideally, I think the best day for a lot of people is the day they get rid of their mortgage insurance. It just becomes a goal that you need to have. So,
Thank you.
anything else on that slide? Oh. Go ahead. I'll let you talk about this stuff, Andy.
Okay, so when you get ready to do this, your earnest money deposit is somewhere between 1% of the purchase price all the way up to as much as you want to do. Basically, what it's doing is it's saying to the seller, I'm very sincere. I want to buy your house. It is money that you can risk if you don't follow the timelines in your contract. I equate it to a security deposit that you put down when you rent a place. If you do everything you're supposed to do and you take care of everything, you get that money back. Earnest money is similar. If you meet the deadlines in your contract and all of the contingencies are covered, then that money is credited back to you at closing. It just shows the seller that you've got some skin in the game and you're serious about wanting to buy the house. It's held in an escrow account. Nobody can touch it until the day of closing. If you default on any of the contingencies in your contract, then your earnest money is at risk. But if you follow all the contingencies and the dates, again, that earnest money is credited back to you at closing. You want to take the next one or you want me to keep going?
No, I'll even piggyback on that a little bit.
Okay.
I have only had 2 clients lose their earnest money ever. If you have a good realtor and they're educating you and if you follow their instructions, you'll either A, walk out of the way from the transaction with your earnest money. B, you'll close on the transaction, will be credited towards closing. Or if you make a conscious decision against what your realtor has advised you and walk away at a certain time, then you will be responsible for that. But they will have correctly told you the steps you need to take to avoid doing that. So listen to your realtor if they know what they're doing, and you won't lose your earnest money unless you make a conscious decision to do it. So like I said, I've had 2 clients lose their earnest money over the years I've done this. So down payment, I think we've covered that. You're probably, unless you're VA, you're going to be minimum 3%, FHA 3.5%, and then conventional can be up to 5, 10, 15, 20. And like I said, the more money you put down, the smaller your payment is. Theoretically, there's people out there that are earning 1 or 2% in their savings account, and then they go buy a home and they start paying 6.5% on a mortgage, not realizing that every extra dollar they pay on their mortgage is theoretically and mathematically earning that interest rate versus paying that interest rate. So it's nice to keep savings in your bank account. I'm not saying drain your bank account, but if you're sitting there paying on a mortgage and paying 6.5% interest, and you've got $80,000, $90,000 sitting in a bank earning 1% interest, you're doing something wrong. So keep that in mind. And then closing costs, Andy already mentioned 3 to 5% of a purchase price. Everything's prorated towards the end of the month. So if your lender gives you closing costs based upon closing on the middle of the month, which is the general practice, the sooner in the month you close, the more your closing costs will cost. The later in the month you close, the less your closing costs will be. It doesn't mean you should choose one or the other because you're only just paying the property for the days you have it. There's no mathematical trick there.
Right.
And the beauty of it is that with most loans, with very few exceptions, when you go to close on a house on the 10th or 12th or 15th of a given month, your next payment is not due for a month and a half till the first of the month of the following month of the one after you close. So keep that in mind as you're budgeting for how much you need down, for your mortgage payment, for your rent payment. That's kind of a little special treat people get It's not money given to them. It's just the way they do the math and they balance it out in the end. So inspection, go ahead.
Well, now the inspections, at least in my market, that's going to be money you're going to need to have up front. Those are services that you pay for at the time they're done. Depending on the house that you're buying, a home inspection is always necessary. We don't have radon in Savannah, so that's not something we ever have inspected. We do have a lot of in-ground pools, so a pool inspection is also done. Termite, which falls under pest, is something that we do. All of the inspections should be done within a specified and agreed upon period of time that you and the seller have agreed. You have X number of days to get all of these inspections completed. Make sure you hire licensed, insured inspectors. Your realtor should be able to recommend a few for you to choose from. Anything that's discovered during this inspection period, depending on the way your contract is written, you should have the right to go back to the seller to ask him to either remedy these problems, or you should have the right to terminate the contract if you can't come to terms on whatever the inspection may have revealed. Understand, especially when it comes to the home inspection, the home inspector's job is to identify material defects in the house. So a light switch that's broken or a switch plate cover that's got a crack in it, that's not a material defect, that's cosmetic. Go into this understanding that you're not in there to nitpick this house apart and to try and come up with a great big credit to get at closing, because you're probably not going to be successful. Go into it with the understanding, excuse me, that the home inspector's job is to find things that are significantly wrong with the house that need to be addressed. And those down here run anywhere from $600 to upwards of $1,000. They're usually based on the square footage of the house and whether it has a crawl space or it's 4 stories high. Depends on how much work the inspector has to do to be able to do a thorough inspection.
So you guys have less expensive appraisals, but more expensive inspections.
Exactly.
So yeah, and we don't, as a rule of thumb, I've seen them a couple times, but we don't have termites up here, so that helps.
We have them.
How long do your inspections take, Andy? Are they 2 to 3 hours or longer?
2 to 3 hours. It depends on the house. Of course, a
Right, of
5
course.
square foot house is going to take several hours, but 1.5 to 2 hours is the minimum for your average 2,500 square foot 3-2 on a slab. If it's one of our downtown built in the 1800s, that's going to take a little bit longer, but typically a couple of hours.
Okay. And then you've got your appraisal, and we talked about the prices of that being between $500-600 up to probably $1,000. Sometimes, like she says, they ask for that money up front. There are some instances where they just leave it in your closing costs when you go to purchase at closing. But I think they do like you to do it up front in the event that the appraisal comes in low, and then they're out that money because you're not excited to go pay for an appraisal that's keeping you from buying a house.
Exactly.
So, and property surveys aren't that common if you're living in a city, at least in my area.
Right.
How frequency do you need a property surveyed in Savannah?
We don't. Georgia is a non-survey state, so our lenders don't require them. If the buyer wants one, we certainly will get one done, but 9 times out of 10, we don't.
Yeah. I mean, 80% of my properties there's fences in town. There's landscaping that shows where the property is. And now and then I'll get that odd question. It's like, should we get the property surveyed? My father said we should get it surveyed. It's like, have at it. You know, the fence is it. And, you know, if you and the neighbors, if there's no fencing and you're going to put a fence in, you either work it out with the neighbors, which if they're both adults can pretty well be done. And if the neighbor just absolutely refuses anywhere you suggest the fence should go, then yeah, you're probably gonna have to pay for a survey for the fence, unfortunately. But more often than not, neighbors work it out.
And our fencing companies will do something called just corner mark.
Yeah.
They'll be responsible for kind of determining legally where the fence can go before they install a fence.
And we've had some pretty good about that also. Yeah. So I'm gonna peek real quick, make sure. I assume Bev is watching the questions and answers. And chat, I don't see anything. So I'll click to the next one. Oh, choosing your buyer's agent. I guess we kind of briefly did this, but we obviously are biased towards exclusive buyer's agents. They're not everywhere. So a lot of people, large percentage of the population, there are still brokers out there that don't practice exclusive buyer's agency, and they're good realtors. You could ask them not to practice dual agency, which is the practice of representing both parties in a transaction. They might say, I'd rather play it by ear. I think you should get a commitment from them up front that they won't practice dual agency. That would be the cases where they're representing the seller. I jokingly say that people like dual agency because they can get paid twice as much by keeping either party from being properly represented. So it might be fading away historically here with some of the changes in the laws coming. We're going to have to see how that happens. But I think finding a realtor, I don't think an open house is the best place to find a realtor. I shouldn't suggest this. I don't think the bar is the best place, but can't say that hasn't killed me in ordeals. But family and friends, co-workers, and the $1 million question. And sometimes people say, oh, you should call this realtor. And then they tell you about their transaction. Then you say, if you had to buy again, would you use them? Sometimes they say no. So I really think it's the same question I use with builders. People will be happy with their builder. And I will ask, if you had to build again, is he the first person you'd call? And I'm looking for a yes. I'm not looking for a no or a hesitation or a maybe. So I think the $1 million question for me is, if you had to buy a house again, would you use that realtor? That's the endorsement you want.
Absolutely.
So. Anything else there, Andy?
No, I mean, you hit on it. Just understand who they're representing. That's the biggest question when you're interviewing realtors. Make sure you understand, one, what they're asking you to sign, because as of August 17th, you're going to have to sign an agreement with whomever you choose to work with. Understand what you're signing and what their responsibilities to you are, and also what your responsibilities to them are. That's all part of this new change that's coming. And if they ask you to agree to dual agency, ask them to explain it to you so that you hear from their mouth how they interpret dual agency, because there's only one way to describe it. It's the agents representing both parties in the transaction. But make sure that's what your realtor is saying to you, and then give that a lot of thought before you agree to that sort of representation, because it's basically not representation at all.
Yeah, and I will say that on our website, NAEBA.org, we have a lot of resources related to interviewing brokers and agents to ask the right questions. So even if there isn't EBA, an exclusive buyer agent in your area, you'll be well prepared to have the kind of conversations you need to choose your broker and agent.
Yeah, and I hate to bring this up because I don't want to talk about the changes coming. But if a broker tells you that you just met and you're sitting in front of the house that you need to sign a 3-month or 6-month agreement, that if you buy a house, you have to buy it with them, your answer is no, thank you.
Right.
You can ask them for alternatives. You can ask for what's a non-exclusive agent. And you could always reach out to NAEBA and one of our brokers will walk you through that. You could also say, I'll sign an agreement with you good for 1 day. Any decent broker worth their weight will say, absolutely. You just met me. Let's sign this for 1 day. We'll walk into the house and let's play it day to day. And ideally, if it's a good broker, in a week, you'll say, okay, I'm ready to sign a 3-month agreement with you or a 6-month agreement with you. That's the broker you want. You do not have to, nor should you sign an agreement in front of a house to work for 6 months with a broker that you have not met and you don't know what the qualifications are. They're going to ask you to. They're going to tell you that you have to. They're going to tell you that the law requires them to make you do it. And all of that is incorrect. So I didn't want to go that far, but we're talking about buyer's brokerage agreements. So
very good point.
Okay, expectations. People used to come to me, or they still come to me, and I used to listen to what they want, and I don't listen to what they want anymore. Because ideally, they've got the little 6 pages of things they've been talking about their dream home. And I say, you guys want a 4-bedroom, 3-bathroom home with a fenced yard on a quiet street, close to schools and walking distance to a coffee shop. And they're looking through their notes and they're like, how did you know that? So it's a matter about compromising. And then we talk about prices. So sometimes people need a 2nd bathroom. Sometimes I don't want to ask why they need a 2nd bathroom, but they're very clear and I'm not going to argue with them. And I might ask them, what would it take? Would it be possible if it has potential for a 2nd bathroom? And they say, well, yes, can you search by that? And I say, no, but we need to go look at houses, and between you and I, we'll figure it out. So you have to figure out what your needs and your wants are, and your realtor, if they've got some experience, will help you decide what you need and want. Sometimes you think you need that fourth bedroom when the in-laws come visit. And then I ask you, how long do in-laws come visit? And you say, hopefully never. And then I say, do we really need a 4-bedroom house? And they might say, maybe not. You know, Airbnbs are quite popular now for in-laws. So anyway, it's something that's going to go on between you and your realtor, and their experience is going to help you with your wants and needs. And if they're not listening to your wants and needs, they can't help you decide which ones are which. All right, Andy, I'm sure you got plenty there too.
I was just going to say, be prepared to pivot. You're going to start out with this laundry list of what you have to have, and you'll realize as you look at houses, you're going to find that you're willing to give up some things to get other things that are much more important to you. So don't be married to this list of what I have to have. Understand each house has its own really good things and some of its maybe not so much things. So be flexible with yourself and be flexible with your realtor. And also, if after you've started this process, you realize that you've really changed your search criteria, tell your agent, because they're looking for what you started with. And all of a sudden, if you started with looking for a 3-2 single family home, and now all of a sudden you're thinking, well, maybe I could deal with a condo, give them that information so that they're looking for the same thing you are, and y'all are a team in this situation so that you can be successful. But just be gracious with yourself and allow yourself to change your mind from time to time. It happens every time.
Yeah. I mean, and with the weather right now, I can walk clients in houses and they walk in, it's like, oh, we can't buy this house. It doesn't have air conditioning. And I say, you do realize if we were walking in this house between Thanksgiving and Christmas, you would probably buy it because you're not thinking about air conditioning. So if that's the only thing, we'll talk about, is it practical to get air conditioning down the road? Maybe we need a year to budget for it. How much is it going to cost? So you don't want to say no to a house just because it doesn't have that one parameter that you want that given day. Walk it through. It might become a deal killer. But I shared this with Andy a few days ago. I had some clients that were determined to buy a house with all nice new carpet and paint and good cabinetries and decent bathrooms, and they had no concerns about location or floor plan. So they do write an offer reluctantly on this house for $300,000 with beautiful carpet and paint and a horrible floor plan in a really bad location, and the home inspection was awful. So we did come to an agreement afterwards that we're no longer worried about carpet and paint. We're worried about location and floor plan. And we did it. We already found another house and we got a home inspection on Friday, and it's going to go much better than the next one. But we're comparison shopping, and buying homes is comparison shopping. I show as many homes to people as they want. They can compare the homes. Sometimes we say we're not ready to buy, we're curious about this house. We go walk through that house, because when the house they do want to buy comes on, they're comparison shopping from the ones they didn't want to buy. So
that's exactly right. Yeah, don't limit yourself, and don't think you have to look at 3 houses and make a snap decision.
no, this is not HGTV or whatever
No,
that
you've
crazy
got to
show
look
is.
at everything you can. And even if you feel like it's a waste of time, you never know till you actually get in the door. So go look. And if your agent's not willing to walk that path with you, find a different agent, because this is your party. They're just invited to join you in it. You are the one in control.
All right. I think we've talked about the appraisers. Is there anything you want to add on to that, Andy?
Well, appraisal waivers, because we're seeing a good many of those in our
Oh,
market
yes.
as well. And also writing an offer.
Evil.
Yeah, they're awful, but they're happening. And if you're competing with something like that, you need to be aware of it, because if you're getting a loan, unless you're putting a substantial amount of money down, you're not going to have a choice on the appraisal. The bank is going to require the appraisal. So talk about, Mike, if you want, what an appraisal waiver is.
Yeah, they vary from state to state or from different MLSs with their forms. But locally, what it would be is my clients will agree that in the event the appraisal comes back lower than the purchase price, that they will make up the difference with their down payment. And that could sometimes it could be identified like up to $20,000, $25,000, $30,000. But, and I'm not saying you should not buy a home where an appraisal comes in low. Sometimes appraisals come in low, and I have zero concerns about the value of the home, and me and my clients reach a compromise with the seller. And I'm usually pretty confident with my clients what they pay for homes, or I tell them that I think you're paying too much for this house. I just want to be on the record, and they might say, we understand. I've had people pay $20,000, $30,000 more than I think a home is worth before, as long as they know it, they're going to be there for 10, 15, 20 years. It's really not a big concern to me as long as I tell them. So with those appraisal waivers or down payment, extended down payments, it's an expensive way to buy a house. So if your realtor says, well, there's one thing we could do the down payment. It's additional down payment is what we call it here, where in the event the appraisal comes low up to $25,000, $30,000, you agree to pay it. Be careful what they're telling you and be careful that you're willing to, because I think the problem I've seen with those is the appraisal might come in low and then the buyer says, we don't have the additional $20,000, $25,000, $30,000, which makes you means you're in
Default.
breach of your purchase and sell agreement and likely forfeit your earnest money if the seller chooses to get an attorney. So those are deals. Down payment or additional down payment waivers are for people with a lot of money to burn. They're for the crazy buyers, and we don't have crazy buyers anymore.
Yeah, and for desperate folks. We call them appraisal gaps in our market, and it's exactly what you said. It's money to make up the difference in what the appraised value was and what you agreed to pay. And they're desperate. And in the market we had a year ago, we were doing them all day long. I mean, they were happening all the time because you couldn't get a house otherwise. They're backing down now, thankfully.
Okay. Yeah. We're out of the crazy buyer market, but we have to do that. My clients would say, what do we have to do to buy a house in this market? And I'd say, you have to become the crazy buyer. And we're not competing with those anymore. So it sounds like you still have some popping up.
Some, not as much as we did, but yeah, we have a little.
Okay. And here's another thing. The appraiser is not buying the home. He's never going to live in the home. And people get stuck on the fact that the appraiser says it's worth that much. His is just one person's opinion of value. It's educated. I think the buyer's opinion's educated as well if they're looking at houses. So if appraiser says a home is worth 380 and you think it's worth 385, I think you're more of an expert on that given day. It doesn't mean the bank's going to come down up to 385, but don't be upset. It's like, wow, we thought it was worth 385 and they think it's worth 380. Where were we wrong? Appraisals have that much latitude in them.
Yeah.
The good news is the banks like to appraise homes where the purchase and sell agreements are. Little known secret. If they come back and they come in high, that means it's an exceptional house. But I don't lose sleep over low appraisals because I think buyers are pretty prudent when they decide what to offer on homes with exceptions, and appraisers tend to validate that. So is that your experience, Andy?
Yeah. Yeah. We have to remember, and the definition of appraisal is the opinion of, it's an opinion of value.
Value. Yeah.
Carved in stone. They do go to data, they do research it, they do try and justify their amount, but it's their opinion, as you said. So
correct. I'll just do this real quick.
Yeah.
So when our offers are done, they tend to be close to 24 pages. With a shorter one, maybe it'll be 16 or 17 pages. Most of it's boilerplate. A lot of it's redundant. I think the lead-based paint addendum needs to be updated. Nobody seems to be willing to do that. They kept adding things and they didn't edit where they should have. But the components of the offer is you can decide what to offer. That's entirely up to you. People ask me and I say, I have a place to live, so I don't have to worry about that. And I'm not making your mortgage payments. But we talk about likelihood of how the seller will respond to different offers. I'll tell them, well, it's been on the market for 2 days. They have 8 showings and they have 2 offers coming in. So my money's on it's going to sell for list price or more. So they understand that. It's been on the market for 2 months and they haven't done a price reduction. Maybe it's time we do what I call a buyer inspired price reduction. Once again, it's back to your realtor. What's your guys' settlement dates? Are you guys taking 30, 40 days?
Or 30 days. Yeah, 30 days. Our lenders, if it's an all cash, we can do it in 2 weeks. But if it's a finance deal, then it's 30 days. And you've got to factor in your home inspection contingencies there as well, because you really don't want to start the mortgage process until you've gone through the inspection process. In the event the inspection reveals something that makes you want to terminate, you don't want the lender to have spent your money on your appraisal and your credit report if you're not going to go through with it, because that's money that you're going to spend regardless. So, but 30 to 45 days on average if it's a loan.
Same here. We've talked about earnest money deposits. That's going to be on there. The lender letter is a must. back in the 90s, we didn't have really lender letters. They might call the lender up and ask them. All they wanted to see was a copy of the earnest money check, which was kind of funny because I could write a earnest money check, run it over my copy machine, and hand it back to the buyer if I wanted. It didn't mean anything. But today they want a copy of the lender's letter, which is acceptable. Ideally, you're going to have 8-10 days to do your home inspection contingency. If for some reason in our market, it's just a yes or no. We can just say no without disclosing why. We literally have a box to check. That's not the same with all states. Some states, they have to request things and be denied before they can walk away. But we have just a blanket unhappy with it. So that's to protecting you. Your financing contingency, we've talked about. The biggest one for your financing is the appraisal. But it also means if you lost your job a week before closing, you lose your job a week before closing, and you've basically fulfilled all of the obligations of your purchase and sale agreement, your financing contingency in most states and with most cases would mean you no longer are qualified to purchase the home, and you get released with your earnest money back.
And remember too, at least in Georgia, the home inspection contingency, we call it the due diligence period. It's not just the time we use to get the home inspection. It's the time to get quotes on your hazard insurance, on flood insurance, if applicable down here. It's the time basically to do your due diligence. That's why it's called that, and find out everything that's going to impact your decision to move forward, because that's the time period that you can terminate the contract without cause. Like Mike said, you don't even have to give them a reason, but that's that period of time. So make sure you have enough of that time and that you get those other questions answered if they exist.
Yep. And once you're out of that due diligence, probably the only other protection you have is your financing contingency.
Yep. That's right.
Go ahead, Andy.
Well, making the offer, as it says, we fill out the paperwork for you. So 90% of the time, the real estate agent will put the contract together. You make determinations on what you want to offer based on your finances, your budget, and you've looked at comparables. Your agent should provide you with comparable sales in an area near or in the same neighborhood as the house you're considering. And y'all can work together on coming up with what you feel is a fair price. I think right now, at least in our market, the days of the deals are gone. We're not going to go in and really get a low offer accepted in these days, unless it's a house that nobody's going to want anyway. And why would you buy that? So once the buyer and the seller have agreed on the terms, and those terms include not just the purchase price, but the closing date, the amount of earnest money. Sometimes the closing agent comes into play. In Georgia, we use closing attorneys. I know in other parts of the country, they're title companies. Typically the buyer, because they're the ones paying all the closing costs, select that closing agent. But if the seller is paying closing costs, or in the case it's a house in probate, it might be better to use the attorney that's handling the probate of the house. So there's several little factors that come into play when you're talking about making the offer and getting it agreed to by all parties. Once it is agreed to by all parties, it is a ratified contract, or in our world, we call it a bound contract. That day is the day that all of these contingencies start. So if you have a 10-day due diligence period, day one of your ratified contract starts the day after all the parties have signed. And that's when the clock starts ticking. And in those cases, those days are all days. They're all calendar days. They're not just Monday through Friday. So understand, if you've got a 7-day due diligence and it falls over 2 weekends, you really only have 5 business days to get some of these things accomplished. So keep that in mind when you're writing these offers with these days.
Yeah. It's funny you're talking about attorneys. We don't use attorneys too much to close our transactions here, fortunately. But didn't I learn last fall in Savannah that they had years ago, 100 years ago, they tried to prohibit attorneys living in Georgia?
I didn't hear that. Did you hear that?
That was at the Prohibition Museum. Yeah.
Oh, well, see,
So
I was at the bar at the Prohibition Museum.
So yeah, so no, they were served. They said that the clauses in there was like prohibiting attorneys was their plan for the state of Georgia back in
Would
the
not
1800s.
surprise me at all.
Yeah, so too bad they didn't get away with it.
I'm glad you learned something when you were here, Mike.
Yeah, you're always at the bar, I guess. Just
Hey.
kidding. So yeah, not much more with making an offer. I like to tell my clients we're in the driver's seat. Once it's you send it off to the seller, and sometimes if multiple offer situation, you don't get 2 bites at the apple. So sometimes people, and this is a sad part, and this happens more often with first-time home buyers with parents that are advising them. They see a home, they love the house, they're about to write a really good offer on it, and the parents say, just go in a little bit under and see how they respond. And then so I follow their instructions after counseling them. They go in less than list price. The seller gets a better ideal, better offer on it. And then my buyers are saying, well, call the realtor and tell them we'll pay full price. We'll pay more. You don't get to go do that when they've chosen another buyer. So unfortunately, I hate to say it, but you got to make your strongest offer, especially in a market when you know there's a really good chance another buyer is coming along. And if you've been looking at 8, 10, 12 houses and you walk into a house and you say, this house is priced really well, there's 8, 10, 12 people behind you coming to the same conclusion. So you have to be aware of that. Don't second guess that you appreciate it and think nobody else appreciates the house as well. So keep that in mind. There's nothing harder than calling up your clients when they knew they wanted to pay more. Somebody talked them out of it. They didn't write their best offer and they don't get the house and they want to. Their parents like, oh, call the realtor, tell them you changed your mind. It's like they've already signed around an offer. They have a ratified offer done. So,
so Mike, and Andy, I have a question. What about an as-is offer?
I'd love to answer that.
Go for it.
Real estate sells as is. For people that don't really understand, you are buying a house as is. If you're talking about waiving a home inspection contingency, you could take that into consideration. But once an offer is agreed to, absent further negotiations from the home inspection, you are buying a home as is. So it doesn't mean a whole lot unless you're suggesting waiving the home inspection contingency. I'm really good at talking my clients out of it. Have I failed before? Yes. But as a rule of thumb, I tell them it's just a horrible way to buy real estate. Even I've seen the best homes, but as long as they are open to it, as long as they're okay with the fact that 2 months later they go up into their attic to put their Christmas decorations up there and there's an $8,000 mold issue, okay. Or they move into the home and 2 weeks later it backs up because the water hasn't been flowing through. I've seen that happen with other realtors as well. Buying a house as is can cost you tens of thousands of dollars. It's a low probability. It's just an expensive probability. So that'd be waiving a home inspection as an as is.
We do as is, but we reserve the right to have the house inspected. We understand going into it that the seller's not going to do anything that we might find as a result of the inspection, but we retain the right to terminate the contract if there's something found during inspections that we want to bail. And surprisingly, I've had several as is with the right to inspect. And after the inspection, the agents called and said, well, what'd they find? And I said, well, they've got, here it is. Oh, we'll take care of all of that.
Exactly.
So then it's not really an as is. So right, if you're going to do an as is, because you might have a better opportunity of getting it accepted, but make sure that you retain the right to have the home inspection done so that you do have the protection of that home inspection and that you can get out of the contract if the seller refuses to fix any of the issues that are found.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's kind of the fallacy in that it's kind of like it's as is, but don't tell me a homeowner's had the home off the market for 10 days. And if you come to them and say, we did our inspection and we decided not to purchase it, the first question is why not?
What happened? Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like, well,
that's a great point, Mike. If you're looking at a house and your agent says, well, this was under contract and came back on the market, have them call and find out why. Because there's a reason that offer terminated. It may not have anything to do with the house at all. It may be the person got relocated, got cold feet, broke up, decided to divorce, but find out why, because that could be real material fact you need to know.
Okay. And for the sake of interest, Mark does have a follow-up to the lawyer's issue in Savannah in the chat.
We knew he would. Thank you, Mark.
Is it there?
Also, Catholics and liquor. Well, that didn't last very long.
I don't think I know where it is. Okay. I'm
Thanks.
not getting the very. I didn't mean to go back there yet. Were we done with that? That page doesn't show very well.
I mean, we
let's
pretty
see,
much
deposit.
talked about it. Yeah.
Yeah, so here's our next steps. If
Mhm.
you get your offer signed around. Earnest money usually in our market needs to be deposited within 3 days. Remember, that goes towards your closing costs. I, as a courtesy, send the purchase and sale agreement to the lender so my clients don't have to. Not everybody's good with attachments. Most people are better than me, but not all. So I do that as a courtesy, but you need to get a copy to your lender if your realtor doesn't. And when I first got into the business, you didn't worry about homeowners insurance. Homeowners insurance rates have gone up, in some cases doubled recently. It's becoming a bigger part of our purchase and sell agreements that your homeowner's insurance is part of the due diligence period.
Mhm.
We have homes now that are almost uninsurable. We're down to a couple people to insure some homes here. I assume in Georgia it's a little worse. I know it's a nightmare in Florida.
It is, yeah, with the flood insurance. And keep in mind, the homeowner's insurance is a requirement of your loan. So if you can't
Yes.
get the house insured, you don't get the loan.
Right.
So that's
The
not
days
an
of calling them up 2 days before closing are gone. You need to call them up early and make sure that's not an unexpected.
Right. Because remember, in your closing cost for insurance purposes, you have to pay 1 full year of your premium, and that's hazard, which is homeowners insurance, as well as flood insurance at closing. Plus, they prorate if you're escrowing. They're going to collect a couple of months of your monthly payment on that. So that could be several $1,000s that you have to
Yes.
come up with in addition to the rest of your closing costs. So it's good information to get while you still have the right to walk away in the event it's not acceptable to you.
Yeah. And don't hesitate to call around different insurance companies. If
Absolutely.
somebody says we won't insure that house, doesn't mean somebody else won't.
Right.
That's pretty common actually.
Mhm.
We've got contingencies. We've talked about inspection and financing appraisal, and then closing day. Everybody always asks, when can I move in? And so in our market, the day you sign your paperwork is not the day you get the keys, with rare exceptions. A cash transaction, it could be, but most of the lenders in our market and the title companies and our recording office, you go in and you sign everything, and the next day the house is legally yours. Depending on your purchase and sell agreement, if it's a vacant house, once it's recorded, I can get you in. But on paper, you actually don't even have access to our house in our market until 9 p.m. that night. I wish it was 5 p.m., but it's 9 p.m. on that night. More often than not, the seller's gone. But do not hurry a seller out of your house, because the more you hurry them, the dirtier the house will be.
Absolutely. Mhm.
So anything else you want to add on there, Andy?
Well, in our market, you normally exchange keys for closing papers. So we typically get our keys at closing.
Oh,
And
wow.
the
Okay.
buyers can take possession of the house at closing, unless we've made some prior arrangement with the seller.
Yeah. So, and we could talk about letting the seller rent the house back for a few days, but that's a nightmare story your own broker can
Mhm. Yep. No.
I think we hit on a lot of this, but anything else you want to go over on the home inspection, Andy?
I don't think so. Make sure that you give your agent permission to share your home inspection with the seller. It is yours. You paid for it. So you do need to allow them to share it with the seller if you are asking for repairs. It makes it much easier if the seller can look at the report that you're looking at, because typically they do have pictures and very detailed, ours do, very detailed explanation of what they see. So let the seller have a copy of it with the request for repairs so they can make a good informed decision. I have
wish
some
I
buyers.
wish we could do that.
Oh, you can't?
In our state, if you provide any portion of the home inspection to the seller without permission from the seller, you automatically forfeit your earnest money.
Wow.
It's harsh here. But
Yeah.
and basically the reason why I wish we could still do that, I thought it was a pretty effective way to show the seller, here's the 20 things wrong with your house, and we're only asking for A, B, and C. And it
Bingo.
was very effective, and I'm not allowed to do that anymore. When we take requests for repairs in our market now, we actually have to be specific of what we're asking them to do. And we still can't cut and paste from the report unless they ask for it. So we can say we asked for the electrical panel to be upgraded to 200 amp service. And they can say yes or no, or they can say, we'd like to see the inspector's comments on why you find that necessary, but we cannot provide anything to them from the report. There's one exception, is if we need an additional inspection on a specific item.
Mhm.
So if they come back and say, advise an electrician to inspect the electrical panel further, I can cut and paste out that one little sentence and use that to get 5 additional days to do that. But as a rule of thumb, home inspection reports, partly because of abuse of realtors, maybe by me as well, because that's what I was doing. I was putting them in a position of not just letting them know there's 20 things wrong with your house and we're only asking that, but I was making them aware of all of those things,
Yeah.
making them compelled to update their seller disclosure. So it
Yep.
depends on what state you're in for those things. I wish we could do what Andy suggested. So have Andy do it for you. I can't.
Got to come buy a house in Savannah. I'll be glad to.
Yeah.
You know, I think that really does highlight the importance of, if you're moving from somewhere else and your parents are advising you,
Mhm.
another reason that you need to be working with the broker in your area that you're
Yep.
buying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Nicolina had a comment about in her area in Minnesota, the lender occasionally might have a promotion to offer to pay for the appraisal. But in
Oh.
general, it's the buyer who pays for the appraisal as part of the closing costs.
Yeah.
And you know, that's another thing I wanted to say, because I had this happen last month. Your lender never sees your inspection report, nor does the lender ever get the repair request. I had a buyer send their lender the inspection and the repair request because he thought they needed to have it, and that can create havoc in underwriting.
Yeah.
They don't
The-
need
the-
it. They don't
The
want it.
lender does not want to know the condition of the
No.
house, with rare exceptions. Even for some home buyer programs where they require you get an appraisal, they're not asking for a copy of the appraisal, they're asking for a copy of the receipt to confirm that you had an appraisal. So there's a couple exceptions in there, but as a rule of thumb, that's not information the lender wants.
Well, and it's not
Mm.
pertinent to the loan. It's
Yeah,
not,
and it's
doesn't
usually
have
not
anything
pertinent to
to
the
do
value.
with the loan. So
Yeah.
let your agent provide your lender with everything that your lender needs to have.
And another question, is the buyer allowed to attend the home inspection process?
Oh, I insist my buyer be there if they possibly can. Yes. So they get firsthand information. I've had buyers don the hazmat suits and crawl into crawl spaces with my home inspector. So yes, I want my buyers there.
I like to be there and I like my buyers to be the first and foremost them, secondary me. But the truth is if I can't be there, I have another realtor that works in my
Yeah.
office going to be present. I
Yeah.
like to talk about problems firsthand, not secondhand. And I want my buyers to understand problems firsthand, not secondhand.
Exactly. So yes, definitely.
There are realtors out there that have horrible times getting their clients through home inspections. And if you dig deep down into it, one is their clients didn't attend the home inspection, or B, the realtor didn't, or both. And you're trying to negotiate something. Everything on paper looks worse than in person, actually.
Absolutely. Not
So,
only
when
that,
it comes to
especially
home inspections.
if it's a first-time home buyer, my inspector likes to go over just general maintenance information with my buyer, not
Absolutely.
necessarily point out bad things, but it's a learning tool for my client. I don't want to tell them how to maintain their HVAC, but he will. So
Mhm.
it'd be a real good experience for them to learn how to take care of this huge investment that they're making.
I don't know if I enjoy going on them anymore because I've been on hundreds and hundreds of them, but it's still a part of my job. And I learn something every time. And sometimes the home inspectors I use will turn, it's like, well, what did you learn today, Mike? And I can find something I learned.
Yep.
So final step. So that's a good page to get to. Go ahead.
I'm reading what this says before I speak to it. And I did have a question that came in on my text too, that was about an all cash offer. And what do you submit with an all cash offer? And that would be proof of funds, which can be the form of a bank statement or a letter from your bank. But if you're going to make an all cash offer, you have to say to the seller, here's the proof that I can do this and pay for it. So hopefully that answers that question. Yeah, so final steps. The lender should have everything they need. Don't be surprised if they come back and ask you for things that you've already provided to them again. They have to. What you have to understand is the lender has a checklist, and they have to check every single box on that list at least twice, if not 3 times. So you may give them pay stubs over and over again. You may give them bank statements, and they will more than likely ask for your bank statement again right before closing. And that's to make sure you didn't get a pile of money in right before closing that they don't know about, because they don't want you to have gone out and borrowed money that they're unaware of. They'll run another credit report. So it is extremely important that where you sit with your credit when you make application is where you sit the day you close. You can go out and buy an entire house full of furniture after closing. Prior to closing, don't incur any new debt. And keep a record of any monies that do come in. They want to see a paper trail of, if you got $100 for your birthday from your grandmother, keep a copy of the check, because they're going to want to see it. So again, the lender should have everything by the time you get ready for closing. You'll go to closing, you'll sign a stack of papers. Very few of them protect you. Most of them protect your lender. But if you want to buy the house, you got to sign the papers. And then, like I said, in Georgia, you get a key. So
Yeah.
pick up where I failed, Mike.
No, I mean, if I'll put on a lender hat here, even though I'm not a lender, if you get this great idea to go buy your washer and dryer and they're offering you 0 down on 12 months, it's going to go on your credit score. It might not hurt your credit score, but it might hurt your ratios. That there are, it happens probably every day in the industry where a first-time home buyer is going to buy a home. They get to closing and the lender says, "What is this?" And you say, "Oh, we went and got furniture, a washer and dryer. We bought our new appliances." Or it's not, I've had cars pull up to closing, brand new vehicles.
Oh, yeah.
And the realtor is like, "Where did the car come from?" And they say, "We just bought it last weekend." And they get to closing. The banks are pretty good at, do they make mistakes? Yes, but they're actually pretty good at the business of making sure you're qualified. And a car payment, if you are on the, basically on the edge of ratios, the car payment is going to destroy your chance to buy a home. I have told people, it's like, I can't wait for you to buy a car the day after you close on your home.
Right.
Not the day before, not the day of, the day after, when it's all recorded and you're free and clear. Don't think it's the weekend. We're closing on Monday. How's the bank going to find out? They are going to find out. So that's my lender hat.
Ratios, when Mike talks of ratios, what he's talking about is your debt to income ratio. That's the biggest factor that the bank is looking at. Does your income support this debt? And if you just got a new one because you bought a truck because you needed it to move from the apartment to the house, which we have had happen, you're not going to be able to close. And that will not secure or save your earnest money. You will lose your earnest money if
It's a breach of your purchase to sell
it. Absolutely is. So, and the third part of this particular final steps, there is RESPA. It's the rule. 3 days prior to closing, you will receive a document from your lender that outlines all your fees. You have to acknowledge that document, and the bank has to see that you acknowledged it, or we can't close. And it has to be exactly what you expect it to be. If there are any changes monetarily, it throws the whole thing off and we have to start the 3-day process all over again. So communicate with your lender. Your lender should be communicating with you, because that is critical in the closing process.
Yeah, hopefully your realtor and your lender are both being very clear to you. This is coming to you in your email.
Right.
Do not put it off. If you put it off for a day, you're going to delay closing for a day. If you ignore it for 2 days, it's going to delay closing. I think it's their responsibility to tell you that it's coming and be very clear about it. It's not like, by the way, you get an email, make sure you sign it when you get a chance. That is not the instructions you should be giving. It's watch for it, do it as quick as you can, because it's frustrating when you can't close on time.
Well, and it goes back to relationships. Your lender and your agent should have that kind of working relationship, that they know what the other one's doing and they're helping each other get you to a successful closing. It's all part of the team that you put together when you decide to make this decision to purchase a house.
And it can cost money if you have to pay your movers to park outside the house for a day.
A lot.
Yeah. Go ahead. I think we're wrapping it up.
Yeah, final walkthrough. So before closing, typically the day before, if you can, and you want to try and do this once the seller's already moved their stuff out, you do a final walkthrough of your house to make sure it's in the same condition you expected it to be in. If you've written in the contract that it should have been professionally cleaned, then it should be professionally cleaned. If you didn't write that in your contract, don't go in there expecting them to have had a cleaning crew coming through the house. So if that's something that's important to you, make sure you put it in the offer when you make the offer. Then you go to the closing. Again, the closing attorney is what we use. I always attend my clients' closings in Georgia. Now that COVID's over, buyers and sellers are at the closing together. So you're sitting across the table from the seller, which can really be very nice. You learn about your neighbors. You learn cool things about your neighborhood. You learn little idiosyncrasies about the house, as long as it's been a pleasant transaction throughout the whole process, which in my world, they always are. I don't allow them not to be. So, and that's it. You shake hands, swap keys for checks, and skip on down the road.
I don't think that happens in most states, though. I don't think the buyers and
Buyers
sellers
don't.
meet at closing. I think that's actually rare. I
It
think
is
they do it
rare.
in New York also,
Mhm.
where they also have attorneys sitting with them on both sides of the table in New
Yeah,
York.
we
So
don't do
I
that.
think in most areas, it's most transactions do go smoothly. That's the good news. I find 90% of the houses are relatively cleaned better than I expect, because I have zero expectations. And then when I walk into the house and it's been at least swept and wiped down and the refrigerator's clean and the oven's relatively clean, I'm excited. And then sometimes there's really good realtors that have professional cleaners coming in.
No, we can do it.
I appreciate that as well. So that's the good news. I think my expectations are still low, so I'm always pleasantly surprised. So I think that's really it, though. I don't know what the next slide is here because I don't have a little deal. It is, I think that's all of it.
That's the end.
I'll go back, but if you guys got any questions you want to throw in, I wish we could set this up so that we could you could raise your hand and we can put you on audio, but I don't think we've got that going right there. So looks like something popped up in the chat box.
That's Victoria telling us we did a great job.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, Nicolina. Yeah,
Oh,
in
in
Illinois,
Minnesota, they
buyers
sit
and
together
sellers
too.
do the same. It's nice. I mean, it actually makes for a very pleasant way to end a transaction.
Yeah. Well, most of the sellers right now aren't selling. They're all signing remotely these days here.
Yeah.
Buyers usually can't, but sellers can.
Mhm.
Yeah. All right, let's check the Q&A. Paula gave you the thumbs up too. She said it was excellent.
Thank you, Paula.
All right. Well, you guys, anybody else on here that ever needs to reach out to NAEBA? You could always ask if you needed to reach any questions. You don't have to answer questions to a realtor in your own neighborhood. I'm always happy to answer questions. I may not be entirely applicable to where you live, but I like questions from buyers regardless of where they live. So you're always welcome to reach out to us.
Same again. Yeah.
I'm sure the same goes for Andy and
Absolutely.
National Association of Exclusive Buyers Agent would always be able to put you in touch with anybody you wanted.
Yeah. Website's NAEBA.org, right, Bev?
Correct.
Yep. Good
Okay.
deal.
I don't know all
Thank
those
you all
things.
for joining us.
Yep.
All
Thank you
right.
everyone for joining us. We will be posting this recording. So if you attended, I will be sending you the link and you can forward this to other people that you think really need to know this before they step into this process.
We appreciate your time.
All right.
Yep.
Thank you, everyone. Have a
Thanks,
wonderful
Andy.
evening.
Thanks for your help, Bev.
Thanks, Mike.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.